What's up, guys? I wanted to talk a little bit about the upcoming race at Homestead, the end of the season, and just overall in general the state of NASCAR, and a couple of things that I just always wanted to talk about and just never got around to it. So I'm kind of, I guess, the only guy I have any rooting interest for is Martin Truex. I'm not a big fan, but he deserves it. He's had the best. He's been the best. That's been the best car in the past 2 years, I would say. Really dominant for most of the time, from week to week. He's really kicked everybody's ass with the stage racing. So he really deserves it. It'd be nice to see him get it. Plus, I don't want to see Harvick or Kyle Busch get another championship. I just don't like them. So I guess I'd be rooting for Truex. So that being said, I'm going to get over to NASCAR and a couple of things that I would hope at some point they would make some changes to. Now, I know that NASCAR has done a lot of tweaking in the past couple of years. And sometimes people, they don't like change, and they don't, these guys every year they're doing something. But I kind of commend them because they want to improve things. And let's be honest, this year I think the racing's been better than it has been in some time. And a big part of that is the stage racing. It did add a lot to the racing, and I wasn't expecting that. I didn't know how I felt when they first announced it, and watching it play out and seeing how it is. It really does add a lot to the races and a lot of excitement. There's a lot more going on, a lot more reason to race hard throughout the entire race. So that to me was a home run. So I like that. However, there is something that it doesn't always affect the season, but it did last year, and I can see it every once in a while. It'll pop up its ugly head, and that is this win and you're in automatic, playoff berth thing. I'm not a fan of that, and the reason is that it's possible that somebody can win a race and have a shitty season, and the question is, does someone deserve to make the chase, the playoffs, because they lucked out or had one good race? And I don't think they should. Last year we had Chris Buescher, who won a race that I was at. I was at Pocono that day, so I remember that race. And they called the race due to rain, and he had stayed out. He didn't pit, and he made, good for them, kudos. It's good to see a small team get a win, however it happens. But let's be honest, that win is not something that is, for me, legitimate. At the end of the day, 10 years from now, nobody's going to remember that. Nobody's going to care. It just shows that he won a race. But he took a spot in the playoffs. And to me, that is the real problem. That spot could have and should have went to somebody who had a better year and just ran more consistently week after week. And you gave the spot to him because this winning you're in thing that you came up with. And I understand you want to make winning the most important thing, but it is. It's already the most important thing. You shouldn't get an automatic berth. Now, I might be wrong, but I do believe you got to be in the top 30 in points for it to get in. But to me, that's too easy. If you want to do this winning you're in thing, you should have to be, in my opinion, in the top 20 in points. If you're not in the top 20, I don't care if you won a race. You shouldn't get in. So you took a spot that could have went to somebody more deserving. I don't like it. That's something I want to see NASCAR tweak. And you could tweak it by saying, okay, we're still doing the winning you're in, but you got to be in the top 20 in points. And if that had been the case last year, Chris Buescher would not have been in. So that's one thing that's kind of tweaked at me, and I just wanted to get that off my chest. But there's another thing that has bothered me for a long time, and it has to do with the nationwide and the trucks. More nationwide, because you see it more nationwide. But allowing, and this is a debate that's gone on, it's something that's been talked about on radio, even on TV and stuff like that. So I'm not going to say no one's talked about it, but it's something I've never weighed in on, and I'm just going to put it out there. But I don't like Cup drivers driving in these other series. I think that if you're in the Cup Series as a full-time driver, all right, not part-time. If you're part-time, then you could bounce around as much as you want. You're trying to get as much opportunities as you can. That's perfectly fine. But if you have a full-time Cup ride, you shouldn't get any. You shouldn't be in any of the races in the lower tiers. And there's several reasons for that. One, these guys, these Cup drivers, they come and they dominate these races because they get in the best cars, which to me is another thing that really bothers me. A guy like Kyle Busch or Kevin Harvick or Hamlin or Austin Dillon, whatever, they come down and they get the top rides in nationwide. They just jump in there and they spank the field. There's no competition. That bothers me. It's like shooting fish in a barrel. There's no challenge, and you're really hurting your product because one, the races are shitty. When you see these guys come down there, I don't get it. I don't get what people find exciting about it, and obviously a lot of people don't find it exciting because look at the stands. The stands are empty. These nationwide races is embarrassing to see how little people go there. So this idea, and I'm bringing that up for one reason, because one of the big excuses people use about letting the Kyle Busches and these other guys come there and just come there and run circles around everybody is because it's going to attract more fans because people want to see Cup drivers. That's bullshit. People want to see good races. Because if it really was about these Cup guys, the stands wouldn't be as empty as they are. So NASCAR needs to look at that. So at least we've been able to prove now that with these Cup guys racing there, it's not adding anything to fans coming out to watch these races live. And I would argue that I don't think it affects the telecast or viewership on TV either. So that to me has been debunked. Now, if a guy like Kyle Busch or one of these other big name NASCAR guys wants to race in the nationwide, how about letting them swap rides with one of these lower tier, I'm not talking about the top tier of the young guys, middle of the road guys. Okay, the guys that always run between 15 and 25 or 30 in that area, that kind of struggling, smaller teams. Have a program where if Kyle Busch or Kevin Harvick or one of these guys wants to come down there, you got to race in one of those guys' cars and let those guys, for that weekend that you want to come down, they get to race in your top quality ride. Give these guys a chance to see what they can do in the top equipment. Because let's be honest, there's like 4 or 5 cars every week that have a chance to win. And it's never one of these smaller guys. It's always these Cup drivers and these Toyota, especially Toyota. So do that swap. I would love to watch a race like that, and then watch Kyle Busch have to drive around in that hefty car or one of these other cars that always middle of the pack. I'm sure he could make it interesting, but one, it would give a challenge to the Cup driver. It would also help these smaller teams because now you could see what you really have for equipment, and then you know what you need to work on. So it'll help up their game at the track and also back at the shop, so that Kyle Busch he drove your car this weekend, and your car was able to get a top 15 or whatever. It's good exposure for your team, for your organization, and you get to see what these cars can do with better drivers, and now you can work to improve your equipment. And when the regular driver comes back to that car and has to drive that car, everyone learns something. Also, they get an opportunity in better equipment to run better. I get it. I know what all of you are thinking. Sponsorship contracts makes it impossible to do. But if you gave them enough time, and let's say whatever sponsorship, the sponsorship can go wherever the driver goes. For that weekend, they could wrap a car in a weekend. You know ahead of time who's going to race where, and then you could have all this worked out. So the sponsor still gets to be with the driver they're under contract with. I mean, look, thinking about it, it does sound silly, I'll admit it. But my concern isn't the logistics of making it happen. It's just to say that if you really want these Cup drivers in these lower series, that is the only scenario that works for me that makes it interesting. And at the end of the day, that's what's most important. It's the viewers. Because nobody's watching. And especially live. You see these races at these racetracks and they're empty. And it's sad. So it's not because you need more Cup drivers there. It's because you need an identity. Let these guys race their own series. And there's another thing that bothers me. People bring up this idea about how much these young drivers love to race the Kyle Busches of the world and the Harvicks and all these other Cup drivers. And I'm sure when you ask these drivers, of course they're going to say, yeah, I want to race the best. But let's be honest. They want to race the best, but they also want to race the best on an even field. And that brings me back to what I was talking about. These Cup drivers come and they get in these top rides, and they spank the field, and there's no competition. And if you caught these other younger drivers and you asked them, yeah, they'll tell you to your face, yeah, I want to race the best. Inside they're saying, this sucks. I'm sick and tired of Kyle Busch showing up whenever he feels like it and then lapping the field. And it's only a handful of us that could even stay on the same lap with him. And it's really a race for fifth. Because of these Cup, the real race is between these Cup drivers now. We're an afterthought in our series. That's the truth. And if you really got an honest answer from one of these younger drivers, that's what they would tell you. You know what? It's not fun getting spanked every week by the same handful of Cup drivers. I don't think it's fair. They won't say it because who's going to admit to that? People going to look at them and say, "Oh, where's the competitiveness in you?" It's not about not being competitive or wanting to race the best. It's about fairness. It's like somebody telling you, step in the ring with Mike Tyson, but you get no, guy like me, I weigh 160 pounds, and they say, okay, well, we're not going to give you any advantage to even things out. It's just going to be what it is. It's not fair. So that's all I want to say. I would personally, if I was NASCAR, I would just say, you guys stick to the Cup. If you're a full-time Cup driver, don't even. This is we're gonna separate the series and let them have their own identity. Okay, and that's it. Because I think it hurts the lower tiers, and also these guys are just stockpiling stats. So that's it. It is what it is. Um, Also, congratulations to Junior. I know everybody loves Dale Jr. I've never been a fan, but I will say this: he's a likable person, and the reason I've never become a fan of Junior is strictly because of how popular he is. And there's just something about me, and I said this before, I tend to root for not just underdogs, but if everyone's rooting for one person or one team, I tend to go the other way. That's not always the case. Like I said, I'm a Yankee fan, so but that's the exception. That's not the norm. Usually I always gravitate to underdogs or the not the people at the front. That's just the way I am. I just like people for particular reasons and I root for them. And Junior is a likable guy. He's a stand-up dude. From everything I've seen, he speaks from the heart. I don't get any phoniness from him like I do with other drivers. So I like him. He's a likable person. On a personal level, I like him. But just his popularity, the only reason he was as popular as he was is because of who his father was. So there's a lot of reasons why I couldn't latch on as a fan. But congratulations to him, and I'm glad he's going because now someone else can get an opportunity at Hendrick, one of these younger drivers, and he won his handful of races early in his career, but he was never a top tier driver, and they gave him every opportunity at Hendrick. They bent over backwards. He had the best ride. And these are the things that kind of bug me is like people are selective about who they criticize and who they don't. And when everybody screamed and attacked people like Danica Patrick, she doesn't belong in the sport. Why is she getting such a great ride, an opportunity in that type of car? She doesn't deserve it. Well, you don't say that about, listen, I know Junior actually won a bunch of races. I'm not saying they're on the same level. But what I am saying is, did Junior really deserve that car at Hendrick? No. And you could see, he won how many races? Maybe 2 races? I'm not sure if, whatever it was, he didn't do, he really, to me, his career at Hendrick was a disappointment. So they gave him every opportunity, and he couldn't make it happen. So he's going, someone else gets a shot, and that, it is what it is. So that's it. Those are my thoughts, and I'd like to see Truex win. I just don't want to see Kyle Busch or Harvick win. I don't want to see those guys win. The other one last thing, that reminds me, I think the points reset. They're all even for this last race. I don't know if I like that. I might be wrong. I didn't look too much further into it. But that's another thing. It kind of sucks because Truex dominated the season. He won a lot of playoff points. He won a lot of stages. He had the best car all year. They had the best season. And for them to now reset for the last race, and all one of these other guys have to do is finish in front of him, and he has no chance. I don't know if I like that. I think he should get some points going in, even if it's not a lot, just a handful of points, something to reflect the season he had. That's just my thought. I don't know. What do you guys think? Anyway, those are my thoughts on NASCAR. A couple of things that have always bothered me and things I'd like to see change. So, what do you guys think? Who are you rooting for this weekend? And I look forward to your comments. Later.